Welcome to Liner Notes. My name is David Bixler. The week of March 5th, guitarist Peter Bernstein brings a quartet to the Village Vanguard in New York City. That includes pianist Sullivan Fortner, bassist Doug Weiss, and the iconic drummer Al Foster. In this episode of Liner Notes, Peter expresses a genuine gratitude for being able to play music. He also offers insights on how he personally approaches this music as a guitarist, sharing valuable lessons learned from his legendary teachers, Gene Bertoncini, Ted Dunbar, and Jim Hall. Peter, thanks for taking the time out of your day. You're in Vancouver. Where are you playing?
Playing in a place called Frankie's Jazz Club. It's run by Corey Weeds, or he doesn't run the place, but he does the music there. He works, it's booked through this, I think the Coastal Jazz Society, I believe, is the organization out here. But yeah, he brings people out here a fair amount. I'm playing with the local rhythm section, Tilden Webb, piano, Jody Prosnick on bass, and Jesse Cahill on drums. I was out here about 12 years ago, actually to the day, and we played at the Old Cellar and made a recording there on Corey's label. So we've played a couple of times over the years, but
Oh, cool. So you're with the same rhythm section that you were with before.
yeah, we played a weekend back then. They happened to record one night, and so Corey asked me if I wanted to put it out at that time. I didn't have a label or anything, so it was fine for that to come out. So yeah, it was a recording, and we played one time a few years ago at a jazz festival out here, the Shad Bolt Jazz Festival. So yeah, we're coming together to play. It's we've done it before, but yeah, I'm kind of getting on my little travel by myself, play with local rhythm section. I did it with a nice rhythm section in Seattle with Matt Jorgensen, Michael Glynn, and Tony Foster. So it's fun.
Okay, that was right before Vancouver?
Right before, yeah, just so I came out here for a little Pacific Northwest trip.
Okay, cool. You have a week at the Vanguard coming up.
True. Yes, that's 6 nights in a row, which is a true miracle in this day and age, to play in the same place with the same people.
Yeah, with your own quartet. And as I looked online, it looks like your last recording as a leader was also with quartet with different cats. There's a carryover in the pianist. You're going to be joined with Sullivan Fortner, who's also on your last recording as leader, but then with Doug Weiss on bass and Al Foster on drums. So is this going to be like the same repertoire as the recording?
Not exactly. We do a couple of those tunes and some other things that we just started playing over the year, some newer tunes and some just things that I found that I like to play. I guess I've done it for a couple of times now with Al Foster. He's great, and he goes way back with Doug Weiss, who played in his band for a while. So yeah, it just worked out, and I had a good feeling about like putting Al and Sullivan together, and they hit it off pretty well. So it's a nice group. We've done it a couple of times at the Vanguard, and always try to build on what we've already played before and bring in some new things to mix it up and try to keep it fresh, but yeah, keep the old stuff fresh too. So I just like to kind of, if I can, just get some continuity with people and let it kind of grow, turn into something. That's a nice contrast to when you just play with someone and meet them that day and play for a night and go your separate ways. It's all good, but and plus, musicians on that level of creativity and spontaneity. It's just I want to do it as soon as it's over. I want to do it again. So I'm lucky to be able to get them to come back. But the Vanguard, 6 nights in a row, it's a nice gig. So if people are around there, they're into doing it. I was lucky to get Sullivan because he's so busy with his own thing, and Cecile, Clarence Savant, plays with her all the time. So Sullivan's super, super busy. So it's just nice to be able to come together.
Right. So are you writing new stuff for this week?
I can't say I'm writing particularly for this week. There are a couple of new tunes that I want to try in various stages of new, and including some hoping to try some stuff we haven't played. Gonna send that Al a recording of like a little demo, keyboard demo or something like that I can do, and so he can hear it. And it's not a lot of time to rehearse, but we can run things down, and we have 6 nights to kind of get it together. So it's always it's always a chance to bring in some new things to play, even just for myself to see if I, if I enjoy playing them, So.
Right. So talk about your compositional process. I mean, do you have one, or just
Not real. I mean, I suppose it's a by default process. I'm not like a real composer. It's like I sit down this time every day and write and see what comes out. I mean, I respect that kind of, or person who has that discipline in their life to do that. I just like to tinker on my Wurlitzer, and of course, I practice guitar. I play tunes. I play other things. If something pops out as being a possible beginning phrase or a seed of something, then I just try to, I usually go to the keyboard and just try to play different ways of developing it and see where it goes. Sometimes it just goes into the ether, and sometimes it floats around and maybe comes back, and I find it again, and I turn it into something totally different than what I originally maybe thought it could be. But I try to write simple compositions that don't have really, they're not like a lot of notes, kind of tune, more melodies. And I'm really conscious of just trying to make it like, is this something that I'm going to want to play and I'm going to want to put in front of other people who's playing I like, see what they do with it. And so it's a balance of trying to write something having some personality in the composition without it being a dominating thing where people are locked into having to play a certain thing or a certain way, so I just kind of try to make it like more about the form. Does it feel good to go through the form a few times? Because I'm not really writing compositions like things are worked out and everyone gets their notes to play. It's really just something that is a vehicle for people to hopefully ride around in a little bit and have a nice time. Like that's the fun of it. Is like we can play this for a while. It's a form, and does it free people up in a nice way? And does it but does it give them something to work with that isn't just like everyone gets just to play their solo, on over the tune? So I'm trying to. There's got to be something there. It's got, if it's some kind of original chord movement, or if it's a standard form like a blues, there's got to be some wrinkle in there that. But ultimately, you write a blues, it's so you can play the blues. And that's a form that everybody is comfortable with, and just about putting something hopefully personal in there, something a little bit different, so that the composition has a character. My favorite jazz composers, all their pieces have a character, but you can take that character through different episodes and still do your thing. Like Monk or something like that. It's a great composition will make you stay true to it, because it gives you so much to work with. So, but not, it doesn't lock you in. So that's the challenge with writing for me. It's really got to be something that people want to play. And if it doesn't end up being that way, then I still learn some stuff about chords and sounds, and maybe it doesn't end up becoming anything, but that's okay too. It's all just about your ear and feeding your ear new things and trying to grow that way.
I want to bring it back. I just was kind of surprised when you talked about sitting at the Wurlitzer. Talk about that. I mean, I assume that everything for you would be at the guitar. And what does that open up something else for you?
Yeah, I mean, well, I played piano before I played the guitar when I was a little kid, and I always relate to the keyboard. As I got into jazz, playing the guitar, I would always go back to the keyboard to work out the sounds, because guitar is limited a lot of times in the kinds of voicings you can play. So piano is just a better way to look at harmony laid out before you in two dimensions. The guitar is a mess. The fingerboard is a matrix, and you do have to kind of unlearn some things that you learn on the guitar to play songs quickly. Like you learn your shapes and your things, but understanding harmony, how it moves with voice leading is something that I think is way more visually intuitive on a keyboard. So I especially guitar players have to spend some time looking at harmony in a way that it kind of makes sense. It's all there in 2 octaves. You have your, white and black keys, your visual aids, and all the intervals are there for you to see. Guitar, you're kind of doing this and this at the same time, horizontal and vertical. So it's confusing, and you make shortcuts, stuff like that. But I think it kind of cuts off your ear because you only learn to kind of hear a sound in a couple of different voicings. Whereas the piano, you can take the sound and play with the notes and open up the sound. So it's really important. I'm sure it's the same thing for horn players too, just to see, because you play a monophonic instrument, so it's like you have to spend some time to see how the notes all relate to each other. When they're played simultaneously. You're dealing with chords and stuff, so seeing how they work is part of it is seeing. The seeing helps your ear. What you're looking at sounds like this.
Along your path, did you have a mentor or a teacher that helped you to realize this about the guitar, about the possible limitations and the need to open it up?
Yeah, all of my teachers, seemed to be free on the fingerboard. So that was, my first jazz teacher, Gene Bertoncini. He had all of his students always play the scales up each string, which is very, not practical for speed or for anything like that. But what it does is make you aware of how the guitar works moving that direction, just up, as if each string was like a trombone where, when a slide is all the way out, that's the lowest note. When the string is long, it's lower. As you shorten the string, the notes gets higher. So it's important to understand that principle on the guitar, as well as all the shapes and patterns that you learn. So once you learn a major scale, you just put your first finger in a different note, and then that's the scale. So playing G major scale and A flat major scale are very similar. But the problem is you just do it visually as if you're pushing buttons starting on G or A flat and not really conscious of what notes am I playing at all times. And then when you play harmonies, you've got to be aware of all the notes that you're playing when you play a chord. So Gene Bertoncini's whole thing about playing the guitar across, up the neck, it just opens up the relations between the strings. So you can look at each string as, they're all different voices that you're trying to deal with. Ted Dunbar did the same thing. He was a teacher of mine, very important, when I went to college at Rutgers for a year. And he had a whole thing about the fingerboard and breaking it up. But he also had an incredible ear training kind of method with learning how to play, which is, learning how to improvise, not from just playing the scales up and down, but really getting inside the sound of each degree of the scale and being able to build a phrase around each note in the scale. So he looked at it, it became like, the analogy was like a literal one. Like, this is the most important word in this sentence is this word. The other words around it are articles or, things that, but this word is what gives the sentence meaning. So he looked at playing a phrase as you have to learn how to build a sentence around a word. And that's kind of like the way we understand what a definition of a word is. We can use it in a sentence. So that was his analogy about learning how to play in the sound of a chord, which is to be able to hear each note and build phrases around each note, get a relationship with it. If you're playing a D minor chord and you play the G, the 4th degree or the 11th, how do you bring the other notes in support of that note so that note is really shining? It's really the star. It's like that cooking show where they say you have to make this ingredient the star of your dish. It's like it's not about cooking some fancy stuff. It's about, do you understand this ingredient and use other ingredients to bring it forward? So that's the analogy to that. So all my teachers, and then of course when I got to be around Jim Hall a little bit a couple of years later at the New School, just his approach to playing the guitar and the way he really thought in terms of moving voices, that helped, give me this the standard of how to try to open up understand the fingerboard, but understand music. Jim Hall was amazing because he did very guitaristic things. However, there were like guitaristic things that no other guitarist ever thought to do. Very intuitive, but not obvious. Intuitive to him because he was coming from a place of understanding music first. Then you're playing it on a guitar, so you have to kind of do the things the guitar wants to do and use even the limitations of the instrument to make you make, the choice that you, with the most attention to detail. So that's, I've been lucky to have many guitar, teachers, but then also being, getting around to study with non-guitarists too. I took a couple lessons with Jackie Byard, and that was really crazy and fun. And he was a genius. And just to be around horn players, just to be around all kinds of people that try to understand totality of how the music comes together. I think I don't know, a lot of times we're taught to transcribe people on your instrument that you like. And that whole transcribing thing can be, it's important, but I think it's like transcribe 12 bars, one chorus of a blues, but transcribe everything that everybody's doing, not just the solo. Check out the piano player, listen to bass players, understand what makes a good bass line with forward motion and tension and release. Listen to the drums, how they comment on things, the accents. So I think we're kind of taught to listen too much on the surface of the music as opposed to like really getting into that. So I was lucky and Ted Dunbar really, really, brought this home to all of his students. Don't just hang around guitar players to learn the guitar. Learn music, hang around, get around the best horn player you can play and play lines with them, play some heads, learn how to phrase, get around piano players, arrangers, get around drummers, just don't get out of the guitar world. So I think that helped me just like get a concept of this is how I want to play music aesthetically. And then the best way to do that on the guitar is what I've been trying to figure out, push and expand what's possible to do, but also learn how to play within what feels good to do. Like everything, like when I listen to the players I love, it always sounds like it feels good to play what they're playing, So that's the thing too, is there is straining, there is pushing, there is extending, but there's also like, find your wheelhouse, find what's comfortable and, find your voice and figure out what your voice sounds better saying and say those things,
I want to go back to the limitations that you've alluded to a couple times on the guitar. In two of your, prime playing arenas, one is, your quartet where you have a pianist, and then the other is the trio, which you've been active with for 30 years with Larry Goldings. Now, when you are playing the guitar and you're also with a keyboard, how do you envision this? Are you like trying to unpack like some of the things that you're talking about and get into the voicings that they're doing, or are you creating a new sound, or are you kind of content with where you are, or maybe taking the role of single line melodic, like horn-esque?
Yeah, definitely more thinking about linear thing. Like when I played with a quartet, my models for the greatest, quartets are horn players with piano, bass, and drums, and or singers. I'm like, it's really my chance to kind of be out front and do that. Not to say I won't play any chords. I might get into a solo and play some chordal things. And the piano players that I like to play with and people that are listening, if you take up some space with playing chords, then they, change the register they're playing in, so we're not both in the same register. I might try to play some chords and it's an intro or something like that, but basically I'm going to leave them to play that position of orchestrating harmonically the songs, and I like playing with great compers because that gives me ideas too. Like I really like to, as much as I can, listen to what's happening in the rhythm section and let that feed me something to play off, rather than like, I got to think of some super hip shit to play over this rhythm section. So it's really more like, if I have an interesting musician comping, there's a lot of things that they're playing that I can pick up on. So I enjoy that part. I enjoy like, let me make something out of what they're feeding me, And I enjoy that. I also enjoy playing like with the organ trio, of course, because I get to comp when Larry solos and kind of being his right hand is the linear melodic part, his left hand is controlling the bass, and that's one mind that's doing both those things. So I look at it as like I have to fill that space in between his two hands, and it's in organ and guitar sonically. There's a thing there with something to do with electricity or whatever it is, but it's a beautiful, space for you to play it. I can, and I can just think about, 3 voices or 2 voices, maybe sometimes 4, whatever. But the sound is to fill out what's in between the organ player's hands. So, but again, it's not just about playing with an organ or with a piano. It's about the people who are powering these machines and their thoughts. And really, it's a conversation. It's not like I need someone to sit and talk with. It's like, well, it kind of matters who you're talking with. That has a lot to do with how the conversation goes. You don't talk at people, you talk with people. So hopefully playing music is the same thing. And so when I'm around interesting people, that's fun, But I really love playing with the organ because I get to comp, and I miss that a little bit when I play with piano because I love to comp. But I also love to try to be, I'm going to try to be Dinah Washington on this song and be out front or whoever I might be thinking of in terms of a reference to approach to a song. But, my heroes are horn players, Bird, Sonny Rollins, Miles, Kenny Dorham, John Coltrane, Hank Mobley, all these people. Those are and I love, so many people, Art Farmer, Clifford Jordan, listen to all kinds of people, Charlie Rouse, and a lot of piano players too that I love, their approach for, they put the music together. Monk, Cedar Walton, people, just McCoy, Herbie, all kinds of people, Tommy Flanagan, Wynton Kelly, just trying to get ideas from everything,
Going back to the Vanguard and your tunes, you're talking about 6 days of shaping everything. Like historically, you've done this with Al Foster before. When you bring in a tune, let's say that you've worked out maybe on the keyboard or on the guitar, and it finally has real people breathing life into it, are you surprised by the direction it takes? Because I imagine that Al Foster is going to have a strong personality.
Absolutely. He's incredible because I really think he plays the harmony too. He's very connected, maybe just intuitively, although he writes beautiful tunes and he knows he writes them on the piano, but apparently he doesn't write out music, or he doesn't want to chart either. He'd rather hear my little home Wurlitzer demo of me playing the song, and he can learn it, get with it from that, what the form is and stuff like that. And it is fascinating to see how he interprets the ebb and flow of the tune. But I think he's very tuned into, more than most drummers really, into the harmony, at least how it feels in terms of he's kind of playing the changes too in this form of tension and release. And of course the form is really more where the drummer is marking things. But yeah, he's always very creative and tries to get the spirit of the song, get into the mood of the song, rather than just say, "Oh, this is a bossa," or this is he doesn't just kind of think about. It's all the thing. It's all the same thing for him. Maybe not the same thing, but the thing is the song. So, and I feel that when I play, standard with him or something written by a jazz composer, like last time we played a couple times, This Is for Albert, Wayne Shorter tune, and he doesn't approach it the way Blakey does, and it's beautiful what he does too. It's just like another take on the song, but then the song is so strong that that's the, you know, and that, it'll withstand any kind of treatment. It doesn't have to be one way. So but he's very creative. All those guys are. That's fun.
So you're currently teaching at NYU and the New School, and I believe that's correct. You've alluded to having worked with Ted Dunbar and Jim Hall. What is your approach to teaching? Are you like taking some of the same things that you glean from these guys and trying to just let people be and find their own path?
Definitely. I teach private students. I don't do classes or anything like that. So it fluctuates from semester to semester how many students I have from each of those places. But I'm just I let the student, see what they're into. We just kind of play. That's the first thing. And I end up really always just saying what people told me, and giving them credit. This is Ted Dunbar's concept about the fretboard and about, playing inside the sounds of the tones in any given chord. And I just said, this is the stuff that Jim Hall said. I mean, I feel very lucky that I got to study with some great people, which in turn that's maybe why people want to study with me, just to hear what those guys have said. So that's great. And I try to, ad lib to some degree, but I keep, stressing the basics, which is what my teachers, the good teachers I was lucky to have, stress to me, which is just get a good sound, play time, play rhythmically, play with dynamics, all these things that you just try to, hopefully you can just learn from musicians by example. But putting things in people's head is important. It's like, and also I just try to get students to make sure their ears are not behind their fingers, like, because guitar is very, you can get going on some things, and I think in order to, whatever you play, to be able to make variations on it and to develop any idea, you kind of have to know what it is. It can't just be like, well, there's this thing I do where I put my pinky here. I mean, only guitar players talk that way. Other musicians need to talk about music on some level, and it doesn't make it less, passionate to know what it is. I mean, I've heard Harold Mabert and George Coleman talk for half an hour about chords, and just about notes and like the mechanics. It's like, this is our craft. I heard an interview with Sonny Rollins recently where he's like, he didn't think that much about the emotional part of the music, but he's like, that's the spiritual thing is bigger than us, so we have to let something else take care of that. If we're just trying to be spiritual, he didn't say this, but I'm ad-libbing that maybe that's almost a put on, because it's like you have to dedicate yourself to your craft and how to produce a sound that's beautiful. And if people interpret that as a spiritual thing or just a vibrational thing, scientifically, whatever, it doesn't really matter. It's for you to follow the path of deepening your ear and getting more in touch with the machine that you have to play to make sounds on. And it's about that. It's about your ear and connecting with it. Of course, it's emotional. You play the songs that you have an emotional connection to, but I think it's kind of like an interesting thing of just like really trying to, am I hearing what I'm playing? Or if I don't hear it after I play it, then do I hear it? It's kind of like, can I give my ear new sensations and try to really catalog them and understand how to use them? That's kind of what makes you experienced as a musician, is knowing kind of what to do, and then not just doing the same thing every time for, because you don't have to bore yourself. You get to improvise. You can find a new way to do it. And that's kind of the beauty of it. It's like we're getting more of an understanding about how things work. And then also the deeper we understand how they work, the more we can learn how to play and take risks in a way like, I don't know if this is going to work, but I have survival skills and I have some experience-based knowledge. So, hey, let's just give it a whirl, see what comes out, and that's a different thing than just someone just like, moving their fingers around. It takes a long time to be able to come back and play around like a child. But when you're, there's that awkward period where you're not a child anymore, you have that self-consciousness. You have to kind of get through that, but through knowledge, through really, doing experiments, and seeing and paying very close attention to the results of those experiments. And is that what you were thinking? Maybe you find something else that you weren't looking for, which is good too. But with students, I just try to get them, like, it's about your ear. You're not hearing what you're playing. You're going to hit a wall that you're going to have to find another way around. So go slow and know what you're playing and be deliberate. That said, also don't worry about it and cut loose too at the same time. It's like you have to have both. You constantly playing both sides of how to approach the game. That's one of it. But I'm really trying to teach method. I don't want people to play what I play. I'm not teaching them that. I'm just want to teach them to, be able to interact and stuff like that. That's the fun of playing music with people, is opening up.
I'm curious how you deal with sound. I read in an interview that you said when you were coming up, maybe when you were in college, there was a certain effect on an amp that everyone pressed this button and it ended up everyone sounded the same. Is there that same kind of tendency now? And how do you encourage a student to find out what their sound is?
Well, I mean, I was talking about kind of coming of age in the mid '80s when the big chorusy sound, of a lot of jazz guitar players had this kind of effect that they put on, giving it kind of a modern sheen, and a reverb kind of, just the sound of the sound of the guitar changed because of rock and roll. I mean, that was the thing, and that was brought me to the guitar. Jimi Hendrix and Jimmy Page, Led Zeppelin, Jeff Beck, all those kind of players were the guys that I loved, which led me to the blues, which led me to jazz and that whole thing where it all is kind of all tributaries coming from the same big body of water. But I don't know what I noticed when I was in that, late teens and 20s, just trying to learn how to play jazz, was that a lot of the people that I listened to that did have that modern sound, Pat Metheny, Schofield, and Bill Frisell, were just kind of new on the scene. I was checking those guys out, but I also checked out the originators, starting from Charlie Christian and Django, different kind of boxes. But because Django played an acoustic guitar, and from Charlie Christian on, it was an amplified guitar, but a big guitar, an acoustic kind of guitar that people amplified. Charlie Christian, Oscar Moore, Jim Hall, Kenny Burrell, Barney Kessel, Jimmy Rainey, Al Farlow, those kind of people, and then on into Wes Grant, George Benson, people like that. They all played more or less the same kind of equipment with some variations. And they all sounded totally radically different because of the touch on the instrument, the note choices, all the choices, all their personality coming through. And basically manipulating this pretty simple thing. So now what I heard people my age, back then in their 20s, to wanting to sound modern, and also just relating to the current cool sound, was this chorus. But I really found that it kind of covered up a lot of what people's articulation and their touch and their the way they played the instrument. So I just was like, I'm not going to mess with the chorus. I'm going to try to get a sound on the guitar and play what those guys played, But when I would go hear, Schofield and Frizzell and Metheny, I realized those guys do have a great touch on the instrument. So the effects, anyone who's going to sound good with an effect can also sound good playing the guitar. So it was important to, as a young musician, I have to get my hands on playing the instrument with my hands and not rely on the effects to get a sound and to sound modern. So that was the decision then. And I just didn't really like that shimmery kind of, and I wasn't playing in situations where the music called for that kind of sound. So I was, playing with guys who were trying to swing and play bebop. That's when we met back at Augie's, with Larry, with our homemade organ kind of rig that he had. And, it wasn't fusion kind of music. It wasn't Alan Holdsworth kind of vibe. So I just kind of got further away from the electric and effects and that kind of, electronic enhancements of an electric sound, and went more towards acoustic. And I'm still there. I don't really like when I put effects on the guitar that I play. It just kind of changes the way the note comes out. But I'm not against it. I would like to try to find some other sounds that I can use just to change it up, but it has to be in a way where it's not doesn't feel digital and kind of plastic. I would love to have mute. Just put the Harman mute into my, like the way. So that might change the way the trumpet feels, but it's basically just a different color that you can play a melody on, play a song on with a different sound. But I haven't found that really. I'm still working on my basic sound, and but that was it. It's just about, in the context of teaching and stuff, and just encouraging students to get a sound, just with their hands and with their touch. So that's something personal to you that you can develop. Your fingerprint, like when you go for your Touch ID on your phone, it only works for you. It's your fingerprint. So that has to translate to how we play an instrument. It's personal touch. So no one's eyeballs are exactly the same,
Before I let you go, what is next? Are you going to be recording this quartet again?
I'm going to do a recording, I think, in beginning of April. That's the plan. But I'm not sure exactly who is going to do it.
Top secret.
I have to work that out. But I have some new tunes. It's definitely overdue for another recording because it's almost 4 years ago that I did the last one. That was in the middle of, really, the beginning of the pandemic, that record that I did with Sullivan and Joe Farnsworth and Peter Washington, June of 2020. So we were all just like, got a chance to go play a little bit, in the studio for 4 hours, distance and everything. But yeah, so now I think it's time for another recording. But I'll see. I think it will be quartet because I like to play in that context, and then I have to kind of maybe figure out another format because you can't keep making the same record over and over again. People write you off, But anyway, it's all good. I'm just happy to get chances to play with people, and it's a miracle to me. The longer I do it, the more of a miracle I realize that it is. Like, wow, this is great. Very fortunate.
Peter, I thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you, Dave.
And you're going to be leading a quartet at the Vanguard starting Tuesday, March 5th. Make sure you get down there and check him out. Liner Notes is grateful for the support of Van Doren Reeds and Mouthpieces. Be sure and check out the Van Doren Advisory Studio in New York City for all your sound sculpting needs. Liner Notes is grateful for the support of Arlen's Good Beer in Bowling Green, Ohio. Engineered by Marco Mendoza. Visit his website at engineeredbymarco.com. The theme music is No FOMO, Mofo by yours truly. Produced by David Bixler. Be sure and subscribe to Liner Notes wherever you find your podcasts. If you like what you hear, I ask that you consider supporting Liner Notes financially. You can do this by going to the Liner Notes tab at davidbixler.com. Thank you for your consideration.